All right. Hi everybody. Welcome. This is it's an unscripted video. It's a little different for the channel. I thought it would be a good sort of format to get like unfiltered thoughts out. A little bit easier to just say things off the cuff without extremely heavy editing. So I would say just sit back, relax, chill, and just listen to us talk. I have two of my friends here with me. They can introduce themselves and, you know, all that.
Hey, my name's Watte, or if it makes you giggle, Wattapon is fine too. um, I am a self-proclaimed Xeno series preservationist. I collect a lot of items for different series. Specifically, Xenosaga was the series that I started with back when it came out, and I think it's fair to say I have the second biggest collection in the world. Behind the gentleman in Sweden. Um, but I'm super excited for the things that we're going to talk about today.
Hi, I'm Bleshoo. I have been a Xeno fan probably since Xenosaga first came out, and yeah, I know a lot about Xenosaga.
OGs.
All right. So I guess we'll start with like what was everyone's initial thoughts on like when the trailer dropped? Like what was the range of emotions? It's been a week, actually closer to 2 weeks at this point, since the trailer first came out. So like what did you guys think?
So I started watching the direct in your stream, and I'm like, okay, I have to leave at some point to go to work. So I'm walking to work with my phone, and then the trailer happens, and I'm like shaking as I'm walking, just with excitement.
I feel that. Um, yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, I was streaming myself too. It's the first time I had done like a stream a direct or something, and I was with a group of people there. And as soon as it started, immediately I saw the sepia color, like the sepia tone of the first couple of screens, and I was like, "Oh, I know what this is." And I think a lot of it was disbelief, because one, it's been a not it's been a while, obviously, since Xenoblade 2, but the fact that this came so quickly, like they're saying it's coming out so quickly,
Yeah.
is
That's
a
the
pretty big
most
shocker.
surprising thing.
I thought
Yeah.
this was gonna be like a 2023, but no.
I thought
Yeah.
they'd do December again,
Oh, that's
Yeah,
true.
that was also a possibility.
because X and 2 both came out in December.
Well, X came out in December in Japan, or in America only. In Japan, it was like May, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
It's usually always February for these types of things, though, right? Usually February is like the Xeno month, you know?
Closer, I would say Xenosaga. I'm pretty sure Blade, uh, Blade One came out in the United States in like June. Uh, and I think it originally came out in April. Someone can correct me on that. I don't remember off the top of my head. Uh, Fake fan.
I don't
Uh,
even know. That's fine. I
yeah,
don't even remember
yeah,
every date. It's just hard because the different release times, especially
yeah,
in the past versus Blade, because now in the current generations, there's an ability to be able to release things closer to being more simultaneous. Like world
yeah,
releases. Back in the day, it was like 6 month delay, 9 month delay between titles because of localization in the process and the
yeah.
internet not being what it is today. So that process generally took longer from point A to point B. So,
Also, like release dates in general, I feel
mm-hmm.
like were a lot more loose back then. It would always be like, yeah, it's coming out this summer, and then like summer would roll around, they're like, we're not done with it. It'll be out.
Yeah.
The game will come out at some point, but like these days, it'll be a year down the line, and then the company will be like, yeah, it's coming out January 10th, 2024. Like, all right. I mean, if you really
Yeah.
want to commit to that, I guess, and usually it'll come out the day they say.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I feel like things usually get delayed these days.
I
Well,
think
it,
because of
it
the environment.
depends.
Yeah, it
I
depends.
I think the really really big releases I feel like get delayed a lot. Like Cyberpunk is a pretty good example, but there's a lot of times where they're like, "Yep, it's coming out this month in 2023," and then it does end up coming out that month.
I think a part of that too is just the development team knowing where they stand at certain points. Like we don't know where they stand, but they do, and I think they have that rollout. And it depends on the company. I think when it comes to Takahashi's team, I think they're generally pretty well prepped prior to making announcements, because we don't hear information usually on Xeno stuff in general until there's like a solidified thing. Like I've never experienced, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've never experienced a moment where they've announced something and not had a clear vision of said thing to show or to do. Yeah. X. Like that's fair. X is right after Saga though, so there was that gap, wasn't it? So,
well, no, X was right after Xenoblade 1 had come out.
Yeah, that's right. I keep forgetting Xenoblade 1. That was the one I skipped. That was the only one I skipped and I came back to. I'm sorry.
How could you?
I'm sorry.
Wow. Skipped
the bitterness.
Quite possibly the most relevant release in the series. How could you?
The bitterness. Actually, no, it was more the sadness of Saga ending. And then, some people might have heard me, it was like, I tried, Blade 1. And well, actually, with Xenoblade Chronicles, I'd have to say it didn't feel like a Xeno game for part of it. And then when you get to a certain point in the game, then it does. And so I think maybe I didn't give it enough of a chance to get to that point to be like, oh, I get it now. Like I get why this is an enjoyable game. And I think, having been sad about the prior series, I think that's what put me off on it. And then obviously, what brought me back for Xenoblade 2, that was pretty obvious. So then I went backwards. And the ending of Xenoblade X also sort of made me slightly a bit bitter towards that too, maybe. But yeah.
I mean, I don't think anyone can't not complain about the ending of X.
Yeah, that's fair. But so yeah, it's pretty packed full stuff of trailers, of a whole bunch of stuff, and people are talking about a whole bunch of things. And I think it's really awesome that a whole bunch of people this year I'm seeing, because I stalk all the Xeno channels on Twitch because I'm just super curious who's playing, what they're doing, how they're enjoying things. And so there's a lot of people coming in now, going back to experience specifically the Blade titles. And what's even crazier is it's more of a wider range. I see people going back to Gears and going back to Saga, and people that I haven't seen forever that actually were there when stuff was released coming back into the fold, which is really exciting for like me personally, because it's like, oh, you understood that experience of like pre-ordering episode 2 and episode 3 and the waits between them and the mystery of everything. So I think it's really cool to see a lot of people coming back, just not new people but old people as well. So that's pretty cool to see.
3 is sort of giving us, I would imagine, a similar mystery where 2 was announced and I was like, oh, it doesn't seem like very connected. So there wasn't a whole lot of connections that could be drawn between 1 and 2 initially. But now 3, it's pretty explicit. Like, yep, this is taking place after both games, and there's some stuff going on.
It's a combination of the 2 games.
Yeah.
Well,
now everyone can be happy. Blade 1s and Blade 2s can coexist peacefully.
Yes, we're finally gonna merge the fan bases.
Can we though? Because everybody's all about the war. They're like team Ilya, team Nia,
But the end of the game is clearly gonna be like the war doesn't matter. Is we need to unite. That's gonna be part of the story.
The Wilhelm is in the details. If you know that saying.
What?
Or the bunny down the rabbit hole,
What the heck?
Xenosaga references. But I guess we could start talking about the trailer, right? I have a lot to say.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, if you guys are okay with
that. We could talk about the trailer. I feel like that was mostly what we were gonna talk about. I think it was just a really good trailer overall. It gave us, in such a short period of time, it's only a minute or like 2 minutes. 2 minutes. It gives us so much information. It is crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot in there. There's a lot for fans of all Xeno generations, I would say. it's pretty packed full of things. And I think with references upon references, as Takahashi tends to do, it tends to make things really interesting. Um, and Bleshoo and I talked about it too, because people were like, well, with this, the perfect works is done. And I'm like, that is not how the perfect works is broken down at all. And I think, Bleshoo, you said it would be about halfway, if anything, right?
I think I said like not even half.
Yeah.
Like this is
yeah.
episode 4 probably, or like potentially 5, maybe.
And that's sort of what I wanted to talk about in the trailer. I thought there was a lot of weird. There's a lot of and it will make sense, but it won't when I say this. I feel like Bleshoo and I will enjoy it immensely as Saga fans, because there's a lot packed in there that I think from our perspective is pretty wild. And I honestly think that Xenoblade 3 is sort of like Xeno 1 rewritten. And I know it sounds crazy, but let's sort of follow along,
Well, it's
right?
like Bionis and Mechonis are fighting. It's like, the conflict at the beginning is the same, like 2 warring nations.
Well, I've been looking at stuff, coming up on Twitter, right? And so obviously the flute is a big symbol, and they're playing it in the trailer, and the flute's always been a heavy theme to the stuff. What I found very interesting was at the very, very beginning in the Japanese version, and a Japanese Twitter user, I'm sorry, I just saw it briefly, so I don't know the exact person. They pointed out the first couple of words that were said were literally Xenosaga 1's promotional phrase, but in reverse. So when
Fighting
Xenosaga
to live,
1,
living to fight.
yes. So that was backwards, and then somebody else was like, "Oh, well, look, you see Negredo's symbol on the flute." But I thought it was something more interesting, because everybody kept talking about, Noah and Mio, and like, Noah's teaching Mio to play the flute. But if you look, right, his flute is black at the beginning, right?
Yeah, it changes
And-
color later on.
Yes,
He's like has a different
exactly.
one.
And I think that's very interesting, because we're talking about their difference in beliefs, right? We talk about, what Shulk believes versus Rex and them, and Zanza, and whether they believe in like gods or not, right? And so I think it's very interesting, because if you look at the people playing the flutes on the stage, they're just plain generic flutes, right?
Yeah.
They're nothing special. But if you look at Mio and Noah's, they're like these special flutes. And in the sunset scene, they're actually exchanging flutes.
Yeah.
So I think that that's really interesting, that people weren't really pointing that out. If somebody, I'm sure, probably saw it, and maybe it's just like an unsaid obvious thing.
No,
But-
I've seen a few people mention it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But
You
it's-
mentioned that the
Mhm.
flute that he has looks like Negredo's the thing on his lapel, or I don't know, on his collar.
Yeah.
I also sort of interpret the thing on that flute to be kind of like Zanza's wings, or like that iconography is all over Xenoblade 1 and Definitive Edition. Like
Mhm.
when you go to fight a unique enemy, like a unique monster, they're around the battle tag, it'll have like Zanza's wings and that sort of design. So I think mainly that, but I also did notice it could be a reference to Negredo.
Well, I find it interesting because the flute colors, right? We talk about Negredo. The other color is white, which is Albedo's color.
Yeah.
So I find it interesting because in Saga, for spoilers for anybody, pre-spoiler, hello, you're going to get spoilers. So just heads up. Because there are some people playing through, and I just want to be very clear, because we're not going to go all the way in, but I'm going to go a little in.
Okay.
What's really interesting is the thematic colors. So you have Albedo, who his purpose was he wanted to find release in life. Like, he can't die, right? So he was always afraid of leaving people behind. So he wanted to find release. Meanwhile, Negredo was considered the executioner. His job, is essentially killing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we have interesting fact is that Noah is wearing red and black, which is similar to Junior. So, I'm thinking if these flutes were something special, maybe it has something to do with life and death and perspective. So, one group values human life and they didn't want to be erased. Therefore, the black flute is sort of the life flute. And so in my head, it's like, okay, so Shulk and them wanted to overthrow Zanza, to get rid of Zanza, right? And so they wanted to live. And then the other one was like with Klaus, they respected his decision and were like, thank you for giving us life. So both of them respected it, but they saw, different means to a similar end. So they both value life, right? But how they go about it is sort of how maybe they would go into, conflict over it. But there's always tons of references. Like Ouroboros is not necessarily just in Saga or in Gears or in, you know what I mean? Like Bleshoo pointed out that, about the UMN, right, Bleshoo?
Yeah, there's like all the Ouroboros symbolism, like on their weapons and stuff. And the Ouroboros is the symbol of the UMN in Xenosaga. And if you know what the UMN actually is,
Dun, dun,
where's
dun.
the
you should
Gnosis?
play Xenosaga, maybe.
Where's the Gnosis?
Maybe. And then on top of that, right, with just the symbolism of life and death, them exchanging flutes sort of is like, I don't think he's teaching her. I think they're learning about each other, because we talk about how they're two opposing groups, right, in this supposed war.
Yeah.
So then maybe by exchanging flutes, those flutes being special, then give them insight through music of how each one lives, right? Like maybe, the flute that Noah gives Mio gives her insight as to, playing that flute and its abilities gives you insight to like cherishing said life. Or, Mio's flute giving to Noah has a different effect, and maybe them learning about each other's, flutes and culture and music. Maybe that's sort of how they more bond together. But it's also interesting because, the trailer with Uni, I assume it's Uni, but someone says they have like visions of the future, which is pretty interesting. Like they saw this. But what's really interesting.
I'm pretty sure that's Senna.
Oh, is it Senna? Okay.
Yeah, because Uni has like a thick accent.
It's so hard to tell for me. But what's really interesting is around 1:15, Uni says, what does it do filling up these flickering clocks in our eyes?
Yeah.
Some people can't really hear it too well, but she says that line that you are like, whatever, it's like it'll never replace the friends we've lost.
Yeah.
And then Mio is all like, the flame clock has to go, and Tyun is like, they're not your friends anymore, they're fuel. So part of it makes me think that these flutes are like, either people are, because you know how like Final Fantasy has that thing like return to the planet, sort of the same thing, and like the sending with like Yuna, so the same thing, but the difference between fueling something versus not fueling something. So maybe the war also has to do with that, the right way to use said abilities. So I thought that was interesting. And then we still haven't addressed the fact that they basically came up with a Hilbert effect in Future Connected to fight the Frog King. So that's also very interesting. I don't know if that'll even be explained, like if that's even a thing going to be going forward, but
Yeah, I almost wonder if like the off-seers playing the flutes and like all the little motes of light floating up is the mechanism for fueling whatever's going on.
Oh my god.
No, I actually agree with that. I totally agree.
It probably is.
Because if you look at the first scene with the sepia tone, and I don't know if it's an artistical choice or if it's meaning something. If you look at what's flowing up when Noah's playing the flute, those cubes that Bleshoo pointed out, because he said they are cubes.
Yeah, they are.
Is blue colored. But if you look later in the flashback
concert,
with the people, they're golden. So,
yeah.
So maybe,
I wonder if it also has to do with the fact that like their flutes are special and the people in the concert hall, like theirs aren't really.
That's what I'm thinking as well.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think it's very interesting. And then people pointed out the conduit on the mechs and that they're mechon and stuff like that. So I think there's just so much hidden imagery, and it's very hard not to connect Gears and Saga and Blade and stuff like that, because while it's not actually directly in relation, I think that it's still a big part of the history, and I think that that's drawn for. And if he's trying to do the perfect works, you're gonna have similarities.
Yeah, I mean, there were similarities from Gears to Saga. I would wholeheartedly imagine that there's going to be similarities from Saga to Blade as well.
Yeah,
and
like straight up putting KOS-MOS in the game.
yeah. But what's crazy about KOS-MOS's inclusion is that it's like she's canonically created by Shion and Alan, not Shion and Kevin.
Correct.
Shion and Alan. So like that, I think that's a big deal. Also, her serial number is like different. I think that's a very, very big deal, and I'm still holding out hope that there is some sort of like actual direct connection here.
Do we have a last name for Noah?
That would put KOS-MOS Re being a post Xenosaga 3 things.
Well, what's interesting though about it too is if you look at their interactions in Chronicles 2, right? Like Telos and KOS-MOS they know each other. You know, it's not like they don't know each other,
Yeah, they do.
which is really really interesting because again, spoiler zone for Saga, that Saga 3 had a certain event, that's very weird that they're separate. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's very
Oh,
interesting.
I had a crazy theory that like the end of Xenosaga 3, where you see KOS-MOS floating towards presumably Earth,
Mm-hmm.
but there's like you can see like
Ring
a
around
faint
it.
ring going around it.
Yeah.
Oh
Like,
my god.
What if that is like the orbital station?
Mm-hmm.
This is like people have like already found Earth somehow, and this is like Professor Klaus's time. She like floats to Earth. Klaus does his Zohar shenanigans, and then that's why KOS-MOS is able to be brought back, because like her data exists on the planet.
And
when
that
it
would
gets broken
technically
down by the cloud sea.
that would make sense technically because if you think about it, right, like especially the Chronicles 1 and the way that they did the visuals towards the end, specifically Saga, Chaos was like he's such a interesting Alvis force. For those who aren't familiar with Chaos, he's a similar character towards like as Alvis in a way.
It's like the same mannerisms.
The
same mannerisms. He honestly looks pretty similar.
Yeah, I mean, just in the point of like saying cryptic things, doing cryptic things, leading people certain, you know what I mean? Like it's like the mystery character type dude. But he even says towards the end several things. He says if people still will it, that they'll still be there. He says, you know, that he's for sure that it's only something Xion and the others can do, and only they can reach, you know, Earth, supposedly Lost Jerusalem. So I think that that's actually pretty interesting. I think that makes more sense as to how she got there, because otherwise it's like canonically, you know, that's pretty wild. So that's a thing. For me, that's why I came back to the series, was because of 2. So
because 2 just had KOS-MOS in it.
and I was like, hot dang. And then
they still care.
Yeah.
Off to the races.
Exactly. But it's just a really cool thing to see, even if we don't get things like HD remasters or remakes of something. It's really cool to see Takahashi still put references in. And I know that makes some people mad, but to me that says like, hey, I haven't forgotten, you know, everybody else's wishes, and hey, I want to make it cool for you too, and I want to draw a story which draws on that knowledge so that you can have fun speculating and thinking, you know, what's similar and what's not. And you know, that creative process is you're then a part of that, you know? Like you're not just an outsider in a way. And that makes it very, very cool as a fan. And I think that's why the series has grown so much, is that people like being participants in it, you know?
Yeah.
So, really exciting.
I am back now. Yeah.
Hi.
So, sorry, my my girlfriend, she got a fish, and she just got back from the store for like, she had like certain stuff, and she needed help.
How did
No
I know
problem.
it was going to be fish related?
What? Did you say fish?
Yes.
What, did I tell you? I told you I got my girlfriend a fish, right? Yeah. Okay.
I want a pet.
What?
You know, on that transition, I want a pet. I want a Nopon.
A Nopon pet?
Yes. Have you seen? Okay, so the new Nopon, not the one on the left with the fro, not Rex, right? We're not gonna care about the Rex Nopon-y looking.
Oh,
one.
Nana. Her name is, so it's Riku and Nana.
No. Nana's the shit.
Manana.
The Manana. Yeah, I thought it was Manana too. Everybody's saying Nana. And I'm like, is it not Manana?
Oh, because there's Xenoblade English translated
No,
Twitter. It says Nana.
No, it's wrong. Okay, well, maybe not. I have to double check that.
If you want, you could go through and let me know any inconsistencies, because I'm making a video on all the Twitter stuff right now.
Yeah, like eliminating ages. Why? Why is that like? Okay, whatever. Oh, speaking of which, so we're talking about the flame clock, right? and everybody's talking
Yeah.
about those symbols on their hand. I think because they're talking about the age sync up thing, we were joking about that. But I think
Yeah.
the flame clock is what determines how much life they have left on their hands. I think those are like as they fill in, the symbol fills in. Like that's like their lifespan.
Dude, that's so weird. What mechanism could possibly like connect to people and do that in this world? Like how is that even possible?
Well, I
Like
mean,
who built that?
we don't really know, right? I mean, that's the thing is sort of, the idea of everything and what's going on, right? Is like there's like this underlying mystery, and like that's the mystery of Xenoblade 3. Why are these people similar ages? They all have different lifespans before from their own worlds, and what caused that kind of system? What happened to, you know, the sword that's broken, and the Titan that's in the background? Like, there's always like all these questions, and we don't have answers for it because literally it's just the first trailer and it's super short. But but I mean, like, um, a flame clock, it doesn't really explain that because he says she's like I said before, she says filling. What does filling up these flickering clocks in our eyes, right? So like,
Yeah.
flame tends to symbolize life,
Yeah.
and so she's saying like, oh, if those flames go out, do they die? Like I don't really understand what she's meaning, if that's a metaphor or if there's like a literal like clock that they have, and then those symbols are the clocks, and once your time's out, your
Mhm.
symbol indicates that,
I
sort of like the
wonder
world ends with you with the clock on your hand.
I wonder if there's anything to be gleaned from directly translating the Japanese trailer, because I know that that one line that I don't know how you say his name, Lanz or Lons, that one line that he says, like I refuse to believe you're him. It's like apparently different in the Japanese trailer. He says something, correct me if I'm wrong, more akin to like uh is it
Like,
really you, or
yeah.
like it's something like that.
Are you really him?
Or yeah. So there are some differences. I wonder if the clock thing more information we could get from the clock thing.
I can listen to the Japanese one more. I just sort of heard it I just sort of watched it today. I don't know why I didn't watch it before. Like usually I do that because I have a pet peeve about localization, whether it's a Z or an S in localization or however you want to spell it. But my issue is often there is a difference between literal translation of what is being said or conveying meaning, and it's a very tricky slope because not only are you changing to grasp meaning, but you're changing it in a way that a culture can understand it as well in their terms. So it becomes a very, very slippery slope of what is the balance. But at the
Yeah.
same time, right, there are certain things that get translated really weird. Like, I'm going to give you just a brief example from a current game I'm playing really quick. So I'm playing Soccer Wars on PS4, and there was a moment where a character is talking in third person, right? And they're saying their name, and it's like a speech thing, right? But in the English script, it's completely eliminated. So that sort of change I see as unnecessary, right? Because the person talking in said third person, that is a character trait or something of the way of their speech, correct?
Yeah.
So that is weird for me to eliminate versus something that is changing the context of meaning, because they're purposely changing the context, right, of what that person is saying for no reason. Like there's not a reasoning behind moving the fact that you're saying your own name when you're referring to yourself.
Yeah.
So that is very different from, making a purposeful change so that someone can understand. For example, Hikari and Mithra, right? Hikari is light. Mithra has a same type of meaning, but in a different term or a different language, like the way you would translate it. So it's similar to that. So finding comparable meanings in different cultures and referencing things. And that's why I think, the Xeno series is really smart. It gets really complicated, yes, at times, but finding equivalents across the board, which then just makes it wild to research, right? Because everything is done in a way that is respectful to the meaning that they're trying to grasp. So I don't think that, for now, I think the context makes no sense. I think in context, it may actually make more sense as far as English version. That being said, I do not know the context of the Japanese version either. So those two lines could be very wildly different for a reason, but that is why translation is very hard because, out of context, that those two lines are not the same. So
speaking of context, I mean, Like any of these lines said in the trailer might not actually be
Mm-hmm.
from the scenes that they're showing in the background.
Yo, of course.
Right, and I
That's
agree,
true.
and that also adds to making it even worse because there's a difference between like saying two similar things, right, and translating that same thing to mean two similar things, and there's also a difference of like Bleshoo said, none of this may be in context, so you could accidentally translate something in a way that in the future, when you know the context, it makes no sense the way that you translated it in the
Yeah.
trailer. So it's very, very tricky. So I don't blame people for missing that. I mean, I think I missed it for like when I was helping you out with that last video. And I was like, dang, I didn't even think about that because I didn't even think to go back and check those types of things. But it is something very small and minute can drastically change the meaning of things. And that's where things can get really, really tricky.
It's also possible that some of these lines are like all the way at the end of the game, like so far in the future, like in the game to where you do have to play through the entire thing to actually understand what they're saying. Like Monolith is not, they're no stranger to giving us content from like the end game. Like Xenoblade X was a really big offender of that. Like they had like the trailer was full of the final boss theme. Like the final boss theme was one of the trailer songs. So
That's wild.
It really could be at any point in the game.
And like showing off skills when you don't get them till like 30 hours into the game.
Yeah, that's understandable. They did show off skills in like the pre-release gameplay and stuff, but that I find odd if they weren't going to introduce them earlier, because they made skills out to be this huge, like very, very important part of the game, but you don't even use them for 50% of it unless you're doing post game, of course.
Still, it's very, very cool. Like, I like them so much. I mean, like the fact that they change forms, and shapes and stuff, and like it's Monolith is very well a master of optimization, I have to say, because when you look at their worlds and the designs and the way things load and stuff, and it's on the Switch and it's on the Wii U, and these are not systems that are ever current technologically with the other systems, and yet their games time and time again look fantastic.
It's almost like Breath of the Wild succeeded the way that it did because Monolith was making it. Don't say that too loudly, though.
Good theory. Good theory.
Right?
There is no way. I am absolutely 100% convinced there is no way Breath of the Wild would have gotten the reception it did if Monolith Soft had not designed that world and made things load the way that they did. There's just no way.
I mean, there's so many different ways to do it from a technical point. Like those games that have like randomly generated dungeons where they load piece by piece randomly,
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of the same thing with like their world, the packet loading. You load a piece of the map at a time, versus like flat out loading it all. So you have to be really, really good with how you do that, because some games you can clearly see things loading in, like the draw distance and stuff.
Magna Forest on the Wii, dude.
Yeah. So it's just like they're really masterful for that. And I think part of it too is the way that they stylize things, right? Like just jumping briefly to an example from Saga, the jumps from each episode are rather drastic. And I think when you hit episode 3 and you look at it, you're like, holy crap, does this not only look not like a PS2 game? Like, it just doesn't to me. Like,
it's a PS3 game, honestly. That's what it looks like.
It looks really, really good. And two, it looks really, really good because it's stylized. They found the right balance. And that same art director, right, has also worked on 2, right? I believe. Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
I think so.
And also currently 3.
It's the same. At least for the official art and all that, it's the same artist.
Yeah, so I find that very interesting because I think that at that moment they're like, oh, we've hit a stride, which is very interesting because Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and X had the same designer too, I imagine. 1 did not, I don't think.
Character design was really weird with Xenoblade 1. From what I understand, they didn't actually really have a character designer. They kind of like made the models in game and then posed them and traced over them, and they were like, "Yeah, this is our art. This is our official art."
What?
It's pretty bonkers.
Yeah.
You feel free to fact check me, but I'm almost certain that's how it went.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Xenoblade
Well,
X had the same character designer as Gears and Saga.
yeah. Okay. Cool.
Oh.
I'm sure because I'm on that I'm on because I love their art and their music, so I'm pretty spot on with those. But that makes so much sense because I feel like they hit their stride with that, right? Like they hit their stride with the sense of like stylization, which is very interesting because I know two they weren't a part of, Soryu and Takahashi, right? So very weird that three goes back to that style. But I always personally have always loved it. So I mean, as long as they continue in that style, I have no problem with any of it. It's so
Hmm.
fantastic. It's always been aesthetically pleasing to me.
Yeah.
So
I wasn't there when obviously. Well, I was around, but I was like 5 years old when Xenosaga 2 had come out. And from what I understand, people were like not happy with the way that game looked.
that's an understatement.
Yeah.
Well, part of it was the development was in such a crazy disarray. Like even with the change of voices, and then on top of that, you change the visual style. It's like you're changing the whole of what people liked about the first one. So it was very jarring. Japan, even the soundtrack is different between Xenosaga 2 English and Xenosaga Japanese. So like there were so many different changes for that specific jump, and I think part of it too is like not only are you changing all of that, but you're getting a vastly, I won't say vastly, that's probably unfair. You're definitely getting a different experience because the context of which events happen, the soundtrack that plays, the voices, um, it is different because Japan had consistent voice actors and actresses like they always do, and then English did not. So I think that also tends to affect the English audience more. You know what I mean? Like they're
Hmm.
more impacted by that because of the version that they got. Not that either is bad, but obviously, like episode 3 is censored in Japan. It has blood. In English, it does not. Versus episode 1, that both versions have blood. It's just really, really
Well, one was
inconsistent.
also censored. Like, there's no knife in that albedo scene.
Yeah, but there was still like there was a it was closer than you know 3 that had not
Yeah.
it's just very hard because the English version development was just wild. Like I don't know about you,
Hmm.
Bleshoo, but like for me it was just a wildly I mean it didn't change how I loved it, but it was definitely wildly not consistent.
And the censorship with episode 3 came from the fact that the ESRB changed their guidelines for what
Mm-hmm.
constituted an M rating game.
Yeah.
So they had to remove the blood to keep it a T rating, which is super dumb.
Yeah. It's
Aw.
really interesting when you look back and you see a game like Xenogears. It's like, how is this T? Like, this is a T-rated game.
Yes,
How on
right.
earth?
There's naked people in here.
Yeah, there literally are. People are naked. People, like, just straight up,
Uh,
they do the dirty. And, like, Faye stands up from the bed and like, Ellie's naked. And it's like, oh
Wah,
my
wah,
gosh.
wah. I
This
haven't
is
gotten there
rated
yet,
T.
but you know what? That's hilarious. That's the only one I'm working through now, but that's wild. I
Yeah,
can't believe that happens. That happens? That's wild.
yeah, dude, it's pretty crazy. I would say like my feelings on Gears are pretty interesting because like I love the story. I think the story is so cool. I love the setting. I love the philosophy of it all. But the gameplay doesn't like personally capture me all that much. It's
Same.
really like a product of its time, and I don't hold it against it, but it really has aged pretty badly.
I mean, imagine, and this is why we push for remakes and redos and
Yes,
remasters and stuff.
yes.
Because imagine not only Gears, but Saga as well, at the scale that Xenoblade is in. Like, I mean, because let's I talked about just stylistically how gorgeous they are. Especially with Saga, like places like Lost Jerusalem, where they had cars moving in the background and like things animated really well. Because like I said, it doesn't look like a PS2 game at all.
Fifth Jerusalem.
Yeah, you said Lost Jerusalem. I was like,
Fifth
I don't
Jerusalem.
think they go there.
Fifth Jerusalem. I've got Lost Jerusalem on the brain because of Xenoblade. Fifth Jerusalem. Everything about it is just so jaw dropping for that time, and I think that's why it captured me. And then if you threw something like that in scale of like Xenoblade now, I don't know how I would handle it. Like I would think I would just be in shock all the time about how amazing everything is.
I mean, you kind of have that in X with NLA.
Yeah, that's
It's
true.
pretty similar.
But you have that bad NLA music, so.
You mean that good NLA?
No.
Yeah.
I just can't.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really
The
bad.
soundtrack is so weird. There's like so many bangers on it, and then there's some songs where I'm like, oh gosh.
Why, right?
Uh-oh. I really don't have a problem with the day theme though. The day theme is like alright.
Yeah, that's fair. It's very weird because the soundtrack is so varying, right? And it's like you want cohesion, and
Yeah.
I feel like in this game it was like, let's throw cohesion out of the door, except for the consistent themes between the continents. Like
Yeah.
it's just very wild.
So Xenoblade X's soundtrack is to what Xenoblade 2's blade designs are.
Yeah, they're really
Yes.
all over the place. It's almost
True.
as if a different person did each piece of music.
Jeez. And then everybody on Xenoblade Chronicles 3, thank goodness they got rid of that old character designer and toned them down a bit.
Oh
And I'm like
my
slapping
gosh.
my forehead so hard. Oh my goodness. Because people
So-
can't change artistically.
My opinion on the whole character design thing is like I feel like both camps do not agree with my thinking, but it's sort of like, yes, they clearly knew what they were doing. Yes, they designed Pirate and Mithra to have chests of that size, and it was purposeful. And I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with it because they're not written to be objectified or anything. They're just like solid characters, and the rest of the designs are pretty cohesive and have a lot to do with their characters. And they did it with a few other blades, but Pyra and Mithra are the main, characters everyone talk about. And I think now, they got a lot of people interested in the games specifically because Pyra and Mithra look like that. And say what you will about it, but it worked. It worked. And there are a lot more fans coming off the heels of Xenoblade 2 into Xenoblade 3. I'm not going to say that it was all because of the way Pyra and Mithra looked, but I think that is a noticeably large factor of it.
Well, I think they did a bit of intentional commentary on that kind of thing with Dahlia, because her whole Blade quest is like about focusing on inner beauty and not what people look like.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard because I think people like to, change things the way that they like it. In other words, like they want to hate on it, so they're going to use it as an excuse. But in a way, and I don't mean to offend people who, may or may not disagree with us, but I think that not having the ability to look beyond that, right?
Yeah.
Like not having the ability to see, like you said with Dahlia's quest, right? Or understanding things about these characters. Because, in a world when you're born into it, you aren't born perfect, and you definitely aren't born the way that people want you to be, and some people don't like you.
You're not born with a character customization screen.
Right. Some people don't like you, some people do like you, and I don't think we should fall, at the core of that.
Mm-hmm.
And some people may say, oh, it's cheap, to use Kino like the kid that got adopted because, or, Dahlia for inner beauty because she obviously has designs, to be have outer issues, to use that as a mechanic. But in a way, though, that happens in life. Not everything is perfect. And I think that people want to make, mountains out of molehills sometimes. And I think sometimes it works. I mean, like you said, it worked. It got
worked.
People attention to it.
People saw the way Pyra and Mithra looked, and for better or for worse, they wanted to see what game they were from, and because of that, we have a much larger fan base, and you can believe whatever you want about that, but the fact remains that what they set out to do was successful.
Come for the clickbait, stay for the good content.
Exactly. I always tell people, like, the beginning of Xenoblade 2 is a little, it's a little tropey and sometimes they'll play on Pyra and Mithra's character design a little bit early on. But once you get to like post chapter 3, like around chapter 4 is like really when you start to get into the meat of the game, and you're really like, okay, now I get it. I understand what people like. It's a slow burn.
Their appearance doesn't define who they are.
Exactly.
And I think that's maybe why I can say that most of us love the Xenoblade games, because at the beginning, right, and this is especially for me, having not gotten far enough in Xenoblade Chronicles, which that's probably the only one regret that I have about the series, is me not having gone through it the first time all the way and given it a fair shot. I will say that. But at the same time, that's what I loved about the series. Everything on the surface tends to seem, like it's hiding something underneath. And so things at first seem shallow and tropey and, sort of stereotypical, but then as you peel away the layers of that onion, you start to get a whiff of the really good stuff. Not that onions smell great, but they certainly make you cry, because games make you cry and onions make you cry. But the thing is like those layers are peeled away, and you start to learn the value is further in, right? You've invested in characters in this story and stuff, and as you start to go in further, you start to see that pay off. And sometimes with some games, that just doesn't happen. Sometimes you invest in it and it stays at that shallow, end of the pool, and that's all it stays at. But Xenoblade is like, you can start in the shallow end, come back out and dive back in, except they pick you up and they throw you in the deep end halfway. You know what I mean? Like, it's just very, very good.
A big point of contention, I remember, the first time I had finished Xenoblade, it was in like January or February of 2014, I want to say, because I had started it in summer of 2013, and it had taken me some time to get there. I actually dropped it at one point, but that's a story for another video. I dropped my favorite game ever for a few months, but I had finished it, and I remember looking online people's opinions. I was like, this game was fantastic. This is one of the best games I've ever played in my life. And there were a lot of people that were like, I didn't appreciate like how crazy everything got, how super deep and like philosophical and just like out of nowhere the game became like this. And to that I have to say, would you have preferred it just be kind of like boring the whole time? You need surprises. You need something to come out of left field. And when you play Xenoblade for a second time, like so much more makes sense. It's so crazy. There's all these little things hidden around the game that sort of point you in the direction of some of the big reveals, but they don't give it all away. And I think Xenoblade, or the Xeno series as a whole, does a really, really good job of leaving you all these breadcrumbs. Like, Xeno games are always pretty dang good on a second playthrough because of that.
I think one of my favorite bits of foreshadowing is the scene where Shulk and Ryan are talking.
Yeah.
And Shulk is like, there's like two voices inside of me, and one is telling me to kill them all.
Yeah. No, that's just Ryan's voice, because it's a bit of a loud.
It's Ryan time.
Yeah.
Ryan is Zanza?
Oh my god. Right. Is it Juju or Ryan that is truly Zanza?
All right. Gosh. But I mean, I agree with that. I mean, I think that there's so much replay value in these games, and that's why, and they're already long to begin with, right? Like, they're no short investment.
It's like 80 hours.
But at the same token, that makes it so fantastic, because if you really like the game, with the amount of content in and the amount of care that's put in, and just the size of them is not something that is, you definitely get rewarded for putting your time in, which is why people spend so many hours, on these games. So definitely
good games.
But I don't know, I feel like I'm super excited to see what is gonna happen. I originally thought Mio was Nia, and then can we also say that I'm surprised Blood has returned.
Dude, it was crazy.
Yeah,
I remember seeing that. I in my analysis video, I was like, this is pretty crazy. Like, we don't see Xenoblade getting violent like this normally. Like, the only time we see blood in Xenoblade, I'm almost positive, is when, like, Dunban pukes at the beginning of Xenoblade 1. Like, when the colony's getting invaded, he, like, pukes up blood. But you don't, it's not like a liquid. They just, like, put a texture, like, they just slap a texture on the ground, sort of, and there's a few particles. And then at the bottom of the ether mine, there's, like, brown blood everywhere, and that's it. That's really
there's the part with Metal Face and Fiora.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
that's
true. That is
claws,
There's blood there too, but it's not like you don't see somebody getting stabbed and blood coming out of it. Like, it's off camera. Like, there's an implication that somebody gets stabbed, and then the blood.
Showing of it.
But like in this trailer, Mio literally like slashes his neck and like chunks of blood and flesh like fly off his body. It might not be chunks of flesh, but like something comes off of it, whether it's his clothing or blood or
just call him Noah Uzuki. But you know what though, like that's what's really wild to me is because like, and that's why I'm excited because there's all these references, right? And I get that as a specifically Saga fan, I try to put those connections to Saga, but the fact that they're returning to the style that I enjoyed back then is what is cool. Like, while I love the other Xenoblades, it was always crazy to me. Like the first time I saw that blood, I was like, wow, like you're getting to the point of where you were. I don't know if that makes sense, but like,
it's like you weren't showing blood in Saga 3, but now you're showing blood again.
Yeah. So it's very weird because, and I think that's very hard too because people are like, well, ratings and stuff like that. But it's like you have to understand that if you experienced it, because back then when I played Saga 3, right, I imported it and I played it in Japanese first, and then when the English version came out, I played it in English, right? So my first experience was with Japanese, right? So I saw the original, but when I saw the English version and saw that it wasn't there, I had this sort of internal debate of like, does it lessen the presentation? You know what I mean? Of severity of moments because certain things are changed like that.
I think it does to an extent.
And I agree with that. And I think I understand why that was done. And the English voice cast definitely did push through, to portray how important those moments are. But I feel like that was a big thing for me, is like having consistency between what we get here and what they get there. And that's why I appreciate this generation more of video games, because not only do we get them almost around the same time, if not the same time, we definitely get a closer presentation. So while not everything's perfect, right? When we talk about localization and conveying a meaning in things, thanks to the way that the internet is now, you can now catch those things. You can talk with people who are Japanese and they can convey to you that meaning if you yourself do not know Japanese, or if you know someone who does, or if you know someone from, another culture, Ireland, someone, Welsh or Poland, or anywhere else that you can think of. If you need information, you can talk to actual people from said places now, versus back in the day when they did localization, that wasn't done through the internet, through like Skype or Discord or whatever. That wasn't even an option. And that's why you have inconsistencies like Final Fantasy VII Aerith versus Aerith with the TH, right? That's what happens back then. And I love that people are so adamant about changing names and things like that from the past, and I get you're emotionally tied to it, but that may have not been the original creator's intent. And as a company, when you put something out and you change something, that meaning may not have been conveyed by your branch in another country.
Yeah.
So I think,
especially back when the internet was in its infancy, and it was very, very hard to communicate over a distance that large.
And I think people don't factor that in now because they're so used to the internet and what it is today, right? Like that we can sit here right now and have this type of conversation recorded and prepped for, discussion, and other people can view it, and media is easily shareable by people who don't have tons of money and, resources and stuff. And I think the exchange of ideas has become better in the current generations, though for better or worse, right? Because everything's tends to be a double-edged sword. As you develop things aren't always used as they're intended. But it definitely makes me happy, and that's why I can't fault so much about things when it comes to that, because I think we're better about it now, and we're more aware of things now than we have been in the past. So
Do you guys think the blade system is going to return in any fashion?
Ooh.
I don't. So
I
my
hope.
thinking has always been that the capacity that we see it in base games, Xenoblade 2, like we're not getting that back. I don't think. I think it'll be a bit closer to Torna, where if you can equip a blade to a driver, that you'll be able to switch between them as if they're different characters.
The
Um,
the gotcha
yeah.
system.
No
Yay or
thanks.
nay? No
No.
thanks.
No thanks.
I felt the same way
I
too.
I was fine with the gacha system, but I wouldn't want to see them bring it back.
Yeah. I like the replayability that it offers.
The way I would want to see like blades come back, because obviously blades, or at least flesh eaters, are still part of the world. Is
No,
maybe
Senna's a blade. Like
yeah.
a regular blade.
So maybe they'll be like rare blades in the world, but they're like bonded to random NPCs. So you could just be going around and be like, going like, oh hey, this random NPC has Finch out.
Oh my god, imagine
Yeah.
seeing like the old blade. That'd be awesome. I'd love that.
But you know,
Yeah, I
that's
think it'd just be a
also
little fun thing to see.
that's also a very scary concept, right? Because aside from Kagutsuchi, I don't. What do they call her in English?
Who?
Brighild.
Bridget?
Yeah. Sorry. Well, I'm used to the Japanese version because I call her Kagutsuchi.
Oh god, yeah, Bridget Morag's
Yes.
Morag's blade.
In regards to her, where somebody actually keeps a journal in her history, I mean, imagine seeing those blades and they have no memory of what you went through in the games. You know what I mean? Like that'd be
Yeah.
pretty wild in general.
We also don't know exactly like again, spoiler. I'm gonna have a spoiler warning at the beginning, but like we don't
Yeah.
know exactly what like the destruction of the orbit station and like the removal of the conduit does for the core crystals, like how that
I-
affects everything. There
I
could
think
be
that
some
adds a
sort of
timer.
impact.
I think that's what the timer is.
Oh my gosh.
Because you have to develop some sort of system to replace it, right? Because also blades are born of titans, correct? If I'm
Yeah.
wrong, because they had
And
that
I'm-
whole thing.
Yeah.
So that's what I think really the flame clock is. And we joke about the age sync thing, but I really think that that's what that symbol is, and that's why it's so important. I think that now the worlds are on a timer. And so before, where you were concerned about your own world, now there's this big debate about how to proceed for the worlds having been joined. And I think that's what the big discussion is now, is how do we proceed? Because in Xenosaga, and Bleshoo and I were talking about this, the core idea is humanity, what it means to be human, right? So I think in this game, it means what does it mean to be of this same world? Like, how do we all move together regardless of being, these separate races and separate ages and separate cultures? Now that our worlds have combined, how do we move forward with all these different things combined? And I think that puts a clock on them, and that puts pressure, because if they had time, right, like blades would just be reborn, and everybody high Entia would live for a long time. It just is very weird, because the other
would
races
continue this dichotomy. Sorry, but it'll continue like
Yeah.
the way it was before, where like Homs are just a lesser species than the High Entia and the Machina, and like humans are technically, even though Torna would like you to believe otherwise, like blades are just a better species than the humans are. So it's like a way of equalizing things potentially.
Yeah, and I don't think necessarily better is the term, more that they are more in tune with their history, because they live longer, so they remember things longer. And being human is very much a game of telephone, because you only pass things down through written word or somebody else's perspective. History is always never 100% correct, because you have the bias of somebody writing said history, whether it's the winner, the loser, whatever that case may be. So we tend to forget as humans quickly. And I think that those other races living longer don't. And I think that would definitely not equate to being on fair ground. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Well, it's sort of like it's the same thing. Like Shulk and Ego have these two differing ideologies. Where Shulk is born into this world thousands of years, well, not thousands, over 1,000 years after Egil has been born, and he sees the world as like, oh, Mechonis is just like attacking us for no reason. But Egil's like, no, I was there. Bionis attacked us for no reason. And
Yep.
like, now I need to act.
Yep. And I think that's what's really interesting now, because by putting everybody on the same clock, right? Let's say someone passes and the, overseers send them away and back, and they were reborn as something else. Whether you're a blade and you get reborn, whether you're human and you just, go to a different person, or you reincarnate, or whatever the case is with their cycles, right? By being on the same clock, that then very much makes it ups the ante, per se. You know what I mean? Especially if you're running out of time. Because at what point, if they're filling these clocks, what point do you run out of fuel? Is that fuel something that gets redispersed back into the environment and you get more of it, or is it finite, right? Because we also have the same thing with oil, right? And fossil fuels and things being finite, in that sense of a term. So that's also a very interesting perspective by putting a clock on everybody. How much time do you exactly have? And so I think that that's what will push our two groups together, this, Noah's group and Mio's group. Because what do they have? Either, mutual destruction, or they work together,
Yeah.
So.
Why are Melia and Nia special? They get to outlive the clocks. They get to...
I mean, because they possibly existed before that. You know what I mean? Something happened after.
Yeah,
so as them being existences before, and maybe that may also come into play, because if we remember in Future Connected, a lot of Melia's people were gone.
Yeah, it's only half Hom's High Entia that exist now.
So that also changes the effect of the blood and how long the High Entia would currently exist. So that's also a factor.
Calling it now, the clocks are just conduit emulators.
Oh my god,
yep,
please no, stop, don't do that. Don't
no,
stop.
He's right.
Stop playing with fire.
No, I
the flame clock.
I agree. And I think that when they called them the flame clocks, it's like how they used to call in X those things life holds, but they were obviously the shape of the Zohar. I think calling them flame clocks is essentially the life, the life clock is essentially what it is.
No.
I totally agree. I'm on board, Bleshoo. I agree with your prediction, because
We
that's how
figured it out.
Takahashi works.
It's definitely, like, I feel like the conduit is certainly going to have influence in this game, because it would be the only game other than X, which is in a completely different league of its own as we know it. It would be the only game that does not have an influence like that at all.
I feel like they wouldn't introduce the literal Zohar into Xenoblade without
doing
a good
something.
reason.
Yeah. It does leave, which begs the question, like, okay, it's gone now. And they planned ahead. So before Xenoblade 2 even like got in mid-development, they knew exactly what they wanted to do with this game. So like the conduit has left for a reason, and because of that, something has happened. And what if the thing is like, we gotta get it back,
Who took the conduit?
We need it. We need to go to the whole different planet. We have to.
Well, if you do, you gotta go back to Saga, because I'm sure it took a trip there. It's been everywhere. It's like a round tripped, bought return flights. It's like got top amount of points, to the airlines. It's been everywhere. And that's what's really wild about the series, right? Where is it going to end up next? That's sort of like the crazy thing. And it's like this thing of unlimited power, and everyone wants to abuse it, which has all these consequences. And it's like literally the most annoying item in the series, because it's like, depending on how they wield it, that can just cause problems for you.
It does whatever they want it to do. It's like perfectly written in this story to just be able to do anything.
It is like the plot point of the series, of all of them: Gear, Saga, Blade, everything, X. And what's really wild is like, minus X, sorry, aside from the life hold symbolism. But I mean, what's wild about it is, will there ever be a day where it's gone? I can never imagine a game developed by Takahashi where it's not there. I mean, obviously X, but I mean like some sort of reference to it, or some sort of visual.
Yeah,
or,
there's always gonna be a reference to it, because if we're gonna go by with like how Xenogears Perfect Works was supposed to go, like presumably episode 6 would, the Zohar probably would not have had much of an impact. possibly. I don't know. We don't know what episode 6 would have looked like. It's the only like dark spot in the it's the only dark spot in the series.
What's
Or
really
in the
wild
game.
is Alvis is like, I've been there at the beginning and I'll proclaim the end. I was joking with Bleshoo. Well, you stepped out a bit about it. And I was like, he's like, I proclaim the end. Like, like if he's there at
He's
the
coming
beginning
back.
and the end. Yeah, because he's going to proclaim. And well, hey, maybe that is what it is. Maybe he, as the Monado, claims the end and puts a clock on everybody. And is like, okay, now you got, this amount of time, and this is the flame clock. Maybe he does come back to proclaim the end.
He
and
also
that's how it
said that
begins.
humanity would walk together. All the new people of this boundless world would walk together hand in hand. That ain't true. That's not happening right now.
Well,
I'm telling
that
you,
may
he's
be
the
the
new
point.
Wilhelm, and he's just manipulating
Yep.
things.
No,
I agree.
no, please.
I agree.
This is my
Once-
favorite boy. You can't
Once
do
the
this.
clocks run out, he's just gonna reverse time.
No.
Yeah. Bleshoo and I are of the camp that Chaos is better than Alvis. So I also agree Alvis is Wilhelm.
No, chaos.
Also
What do you
agree.
mean chaos is
I
better than
also
Alice?
agree.
Hold on.
I also agree.
Chaos sucks. I'm sorry. He's
I mean,
only
he
good.
sucks in episode 2.
He's only good in episode 1. In episode 2, he does like one thing and he doesn't tell anybody. He doesn't tell anybody this extremely relevant information about Jin. And then in episode 3, he also does nothing until like 10 minutes before the game ends. He sucks. I'm sorry.
Because he doesn't want to intervene, and at the end of episode 2, we know what happens, and he chooses to intervene.
He barely even talks, though. That's the problem.
Because he's an observer. He's
they're
totally
so-
an observer.
No.
That is the point of episode 3. Though we won't jump into spoilers, but that's the
Yeah.
point of his job role with him in the past. Was he was a follower of you know who, and his job is to observe and spread the word of you know who. So so he has to continue to be hidden, because if you're revealed, then you know about the device at the end, which the universe and the reset and the stuff. So
I just wish he would like.
Good stuff.
He doesn't even need to like let anything on. He could just like speak, have more conversations with characters. Like that's like the one thing that kills me. Every single character in Saga in the party, I feel like has a very like good, well defined arc. But I feel like Chaos is just criminally underutilized in 2 and 3.
Yeah, there's multiple parts throughout Xenosaga where people are like, "What is going on?" And they ask Chaos. He's like,
He's like, what am I supposed to say?
liar. You know
Because-
exactly what's going on."
Because he's like the cycle that happens over and over, and he's just like, I just have to say I don't know all the time, and I'll get by. Like that's his auto
What a
response for
jerk.
everything. Oh my goodness.
But if you play like Xenosaga Freaks, he knows things that are gonna happen in the future.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
like he's just special, I guess. He's just talented.
That's what he said
He's
when they
just
said, "How do you?"
talented like
Talented
that.
boy.
They said, "How'd you get rid of those gnosis?" He's like, "Oh, that's just Chaos's thing." Remember?
That's just my
Matthews and them?
thing.
That's just what he does. That's how
Yeah.
he earned his keep on the crew.
He's just talented.
Yep. And so that's gonna be Alvis's thing. He's just gonna show
No.
up and he's just gonna be like, "Okay, you guys, this is my thing. I won't give you an explanation. Here's the flame clock, and you guys gotta figure it out amongst yourselves to walk hand in hand, like I told you were gonna
No.
have to do at the end."
Oh,
You know?
Another thing with the war is like, I think there's a heart-to-heart with Nia and Morag talking about war, and Nia's like, "Oh, war's dumb," all that kind of stuff.
war is
Mhm.
stupid. Anyone that does war is dumb.
Right.
Can't you just get along?
Yeah.
But now look at her.
I'm very afraid to happen what happened to the old cast. Like I sort of want to know, but like I sort of don't, because like if they died from natural causes, I'm like, all right, cool, they lived good lives. If they didn't, that's gonna wreck me. You know what I mean? Like,
They get just murdered.
yeah,
I
like I'm
feel
so scared
like
of that.
they'll probably either not bring it up, or it'll be like something late game.
It'll be like a side quest thing where you maybe get a hint on a character here or there, or late game, yeah, there'll be like some flashback cutscene. There's always a flashback cutscene.
In
You're
sepia
like,
tone or black and white.
exactly.
You'll find like some hidden location. There's like a junk sword in the ground.
Yeah, exactly. This is where Rex created the home village of Noah. And
Right. I
No,
mean, it probably
honestly.
is late game because they have to explain, right? So, like, if this is halfway through, he doesn't have to explain everything, right? If he's really doing the perfect works, so like not even half, then fine, whatever. Like we may not get that explanation in this game, but if he's just like, oh, I'm just doing a trilogy, and this is what's so hard to predict about him, right? Because like we don't know where we are in his thought process, Takahashi. So if that's the case, like we need to know Nia and Melia's motivation. If that really is Nia and that really is Melia, then we really do need to know that, and that's going to stem from their experiences.
Like
you know,
they won't say. Like,
yep,
they will not tell us for sure whether that's Nia and Melia, and I feel like that means one of two things. They clearly are not going to be revealing it until much later in the game, or maybe it's just not them. Like twist of the century, it actually just is not them. Or there's like something very different. Something, obviously we know something has happened to them, but there's something to be revealed about them huge.
Or maybe they all perished and they're being used as puppets, like their shells, and they're.
Oh my God, no! Don't do this to me.
You know that's. Well, I mean, lightning returns, guys. Anyway,
I feel like a large majority of the 2 cast is surprisingly going to be around. I feel like most of 1's cast is dead and gone, but I feel like an argument could be made that like Zeke and Pandoria are still around, depending on how long it's been, because Blade Eaters can live for a very long time. Mikhail lived for over 500 years with no signs of degradation at all.
Well, I mean, Nia's there, and she's also so.
Yeah, she's a flesh.
And so is Mio, which is funny because it's like, okay, so she must be newly installed because if they're all the same age.
Yeah, it is weird. Also, I think a theory that I've had is like maybe Rex isn't dead. Maybe Rex is possibly around because like he had an Aegis core crystal installed in his body for a good amount of time, and we don't know what kind of effect that could have had on him. Like the removal of it,
Aegis core, not even once.
What? Wait, what'd you say?
Aegis core, not even once.
It's true though. Like the removal of it didn't kill him, obviously. It had done something. It has done something to his body, whether it's as minimal as fixing his wound, his heart, or like giving him an extended lifespan or some sort of like power. I think an argument could be made that he is still alive and kicking somewhere, or he lived much longer than we thought. Also, Poppy. There's no way Poppy is not in this game in some capacity.
Well, Manana's hat, right? Or Nana or Manana.
It's
right?
pretty similar, but it's not the same thing.
Right, but what I'm saying is, like, if she has a similar hat drawn, like, obviously that style, somebody saw the style and was like, Manana needs a hat like that. You know what I mean? Like,
Poppy,
it didn't come
the
from
legendary Nuppon blade.
Yeah, so, you want a style that's her culture. So I think, maybe, meanwhile, Rex turned into the Nopon next to her, so that's where he is.
Oh, no.
That's what the third nation, and it's run by Poppy.
It's the Noponis, finally.
Right.
The Noponis is in this game. They're Ouroboros.
Yeah, exactly.
Or Ouroboros. I say it weird.
Well, you can say it different ways.
Yeah, I used to say Ouroboros because side tangent in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX they say Ouroboros in the dub, and that was the first time I heard that word. And then
disgusting.
Yeah, I try to say Ouroboros now.
Aside from Nopon, man,
Nopon?
Well, Nopon. Aside from Nopon in general, like I would like to see new. I know that's like the mascot thing right now, but I would like to see all the new creatures in the world, the monsters and everything else. Like I hope that we get like some crazy stuff. Like we see some stuff from the old worlds, but we see some stuff that's new.
Oh, we're
like
definitely, we're
so
definitely getting some weird things. Like this game in particular seems to be introducing like way more varied designs than 1 into 2 had, because there were a number of creatures and monsters in 2 where it was like, oh, that's also in Xenoblade 1, but there are so many in this trailer where it's like that is just new, that like we have not seen this before, especially like the sea creatures, the monsters in the water. We did not see many water monsters in previous games, and I think that's because they're giving us the option to travel on water more.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean,
different
there
ways.
was water monsters, but it was just weird because they just float in the sky.
Or they would come up to the beach to you,
Yeah.
like, come here, fishy, let me smack
Yeah.
you with my
The
sword.
giant squoods.
It wasn't
Yeah.
really like there wasn't a huge variety of monsters that like lived in the water though.
Which is like horrifying because I remember in the air at the sea, like I was like, I'm gonna swim the whole dang air at sea, and I did it, and I was like, I regretted it doing it to this day.
There's nothing.
but yeah, but like exactly, and like that was like wild to me because I was like always so scared because like even on our Earth, right, like where we live, that place there's such a high percentage. I think it's above 90% that is unexplored
Yeah.
of our own water, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I could not even fathom what is on alien planets in the water, and so that's like really sort of like a scary thing for me. So I was like, oh, I'll just swim the air, sea, and see what happens, and nothing happened. So
That's
anybody
why people
curious?
like
do not-
Subnautica.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's literally the reason why people like it. It's alien planet but underwater.
yeah.
I don't think Xenoblade 2 will have weirder creature designs than X.
You mean 3?
Oh yeah, sorry, 3.
It's
We're
alright.
not gonna get the Peter Griffin ballsack chin
Chicken
creature.
thing.
I don't know what those are called.
I don't
forget.
know. Oh goodness. Man, but imagine also for anybody who isn't aware, next year with the shops, shutting down, please
Yeah.
pick up Xenoblade X, DLC to make it run better. And
Yeah.
please, if you don't have a copy of Xenoblade Chronicles on the 3DS, that also is a concern because you will only be able to get physical, and you do not want to pay the prices of said Xenosaga 3. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
get your stuff now if you can before. So I just wanted to do that little PSA because I think
Yeah.
that's rather important that people don't forget that,
Yeah.
physical version versus digital. If you get digital, cool, but I mean, there's only
Yeah.
so much
They
you can
can
do
take
with digital.
digital away from you, and digital
And I
Yeah.
get that like physical is bad for the environment, producing excess stuff, but if you really want it, you should get it.
We're gamers. We're far past concerned for the environment. I'm sorry. I do care about the
goodness.
environment, but my shelf of games would have you believe otherwise.
Oh God, my shelf of everything behind me.
Yeah, it's like, ugh. I don't know if you could. What, Bleshoo?
Material goods.
Yeah,
I don't-
$250 Nia figure.
Don't know if you could get like the data packs for X without having the game, but I would say like if you plan on getting the game in the future, at least just download those data packs. So
Mhm.
5 years down the line, like if you come across a copy of X, you could just pop it in and it will run well. I haven't been on the Wii U eShop in like 6 years, so I don't I don't know how that's like, but yeah, it's worth it.
It runs all right. I was just on there. I have mine in front of me now. Like I have it set up. I just never use it, but I have it set up and it runs really well.
No, I mean like if like can you download those data packs without X? Like do you need to own it in order for those to
No.
become available? Oh, okay.
No,
Perfect.
because you go to the title just like you would in the Switch shop, and then when you go underneath, it says DLC, and they all say free, and you just check them off. And
Oh,
download
okay.
them.
Cool. Yeah, so just do that. Honestly, just do that. It's only like 9 gigabytes or something. It's not that bad.
Yeah, the only thing I will make sure to note is also be very gentle with your Wii U's because I lost all my save data for X because even if you back it up on the Wii U and your Wii U dies, that backup is not good to move over to any other Wii U system thanks to the DRM of Nintendo. So that being said, do take care of your Wii U's if you do download it because that will be the only
Yeah.
way you can do that. So.
Xenoblade and their DRM issues, like what?
It's not even them. It's Nintendo in general. I lost everything. And on top of that, losing my virtual console stuff, it was such a hassle for them to find my
Damn.
virtual console stuff. I got a third back of what I had because
That
they have what are
sucks.
called licenses that you have to restore. So they have to actually pull your history based off your serial number on your console. Your history's attached to it. And then they have to transfer those licenses manually from one serial number to another. So that's why it doesn't work because the actual stuff you download is registered to the serial number on your device. which I was not aware of.
Oh,
Okay.
all right.
So
we're coming to the
before
end.
we
of it.
wrap, well, yeah, before we wrap it up, I want to ask: do we hit the stop button or do we hit the record button again, or what do we do? Because I don't want to mess it up and not.
It doesn't matter when you press stop.
Can you press pause?
Well, I would just say
Hit stop.
we keep talking, and then when it's done, you press the stop square.
Okay. Just asking because I don't remember, and we've been talking for a while, and I don't want to mess
That's
it up.
okay.
Okay, so
Yeah.
wrapping up, I guess predictions, right?
Yeah. Definitely.
So I'm of the camp that Alvis is evil, and that
No.
everybody everybody is on a clock, and they have to work past that flame clock. And the two flutes are flutes of life and death. The life flute being the black one, the white flute being the death one. And they switch flutes to learn about their cultures because they have two different perspectives because of what happened with Shulk and Rex and valuing, gods and not valuing gods. And yeah, that's the story. Is like, how do we move together as a cohesive place and move past all that and stop warring with each other and become best friends? That's mine.
Good theory. Good.
It's
theory.
out there. It's out there, I know. But I'm going to believe.
All right. What about you, Bleshoo? What do you think?
I'm gonna take the joke answer and say this is just Takahashi saying, "Okay, fans, fight amongst yourself. Which waifu's the best?"
Yeah.
Here's the story.
Oh my god.
Waifu wars.
I somehow feel like it's a little more deeper than that. Probably.
Possibly.
And you? What do you think?
I am still in the camp that this planet turns into Mira. I think I don't know. It just makes a lot of sense. It clears up a lot of like issues with Xenoblade X's like lore and story. It's just there's so many things in that game that just feel so weird. And for this to be Mira, for it to over hundreds of thousands of years slowly turn into that planet, honestly, just it makes a lot of sense to me. And then I think after then they can make the much requested X2 and sort of tie everything together.
So I guess pending that final thought, if that is the case, and this is some pocket dimension and everything combines, the story was in X that they fled home planet and they landed on there, right? To restart anew.
Yeah.
And that they are not everybody could leave said planet. So where does that lead it in the timeline of the Xeno series? It's probably a discussion for another time.
I think it's just an alternate Earth, honestly. I just think it's just another dimension, another universe where there's another Earth.
So basically, the other two got pulled into a different plane, a different dimension that is then later becomes Mira.
Yes, sort of.
Well, I'm asking because we have Homs, right? So the people that land from their planet that they left were also human.
Well, it's
I'm just thinking
you could watch my video on the
plug,
on the theory.
There you go.
Yeah. So thank you guys for joining me on this discussion video thing that I might do again in the future. I don't know. I feel like it'd be good to do one of these after we get news about the game again.
My pleasure.
Just to sort of check in,
Yeah. Fun stuff. It's good to just get this stuff out, to theorize and talk about it. It's one of my favorite parts about before a game I really am awaiting is coming out. It's also the discussion.
It's also easier than writing it all. Talking it out is a lot easier. Yeah. So
definitely. So yeah, I guess that's it then.
Yeah, I mean, well, before that, come say hi to Bleshoo when he's VTuber Bunny.
Yeah.
B-Kun. Come say hi in our Discords. XenoBits is open. I'm open. Bleshoo has Discord.
Yeah.
Come see us on social media. Talk to us. We like to talk, as evident about how long this video is at this point in time. So definitely, check us out, and we will have stuff, in the description or wherever, and just hang out. I mean, it'll be fun. I enjoy it.
good games.
Yeah. GG's.
Thanks for inviting us to chat.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
problem, guys. Thanks for coming. All right. Well, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Later.
Bye.